The order that changed everything. The morning fog hung low over Windsor's eastern courtyard, blurring the edges of history itself. Lance Corporal Daniel Whitmore adjusted his gloves and stood outside Office 3B, a small but highly secured royal records chamber. For 7 years, Daniel had served without a single disciplinary note. Today felt different. Not dangerous, but heavy, like the air before thunder. 1 hour earlier, his secure phone had rung, direct line. Only senior royal staff and one other person had access. Princess Catherine. Her voice had been calm, but fragile. Daniel,
Guardsman,
I need you to guard
front.
my private
Precision
office.
Is paramount.
No one
yes,
enters.
Sir.
No one. Not even senior staff. Not without written authorization from me.
I know,
He had
sorry.
hesitated
Just
only
tell
once.
us the truth.
Understood, ma'am.
Enemy
Then she
positions are
added
advancing
something
here.
unexpected.
We must reinforce
Please.
the flanks.
I'm
Agreed.
trusting
Deploy
you.
reserves immediately.
That word stayed with him. Trust. Now footsteps echoed down the marble corridor. Measured. Confident. Entitled.
Like this,
Queen
Daddy?
Consort
Almost.
Helena
Try
appeared,
using this
followed
color.
by two advisors.
Good job. Now
She didn't
fill it in.
smile.
Beautiful.
Open the office. Daniel's training locked into place. I'm sorry, ma'am. I cannot do that without written authorization from the
absolutely
Princess of
radiant today.
Wales.
And you look incredibly
Silence.
handsome.
Cold,
I'm
sharp
the luckiest
silence.
man here.
One advisor scoffed.
A pleasure, Colonel.
Do you understand
The
who
honor
you're
is mine,
refusing?
General.
Yes,
Walk
sir.
with me. Yes, sir.
Helena stepped closer. Those documents belong to the crown. With respect, ma'am, my orders were direct. Inside, Daniel's heart pounded. Career, pension, reputation, all hanging on one sentence. Helena's voice dropped to ice. You are making a mistake that will follow you forever. Daniel swallowed. Then I will live with it, ma'am. They left. But Daniel knew. This was only the beginning. Major Grant Holden stood in front of Daniel, the corridor lights reflecting off the medals pinned neatly to his chest. He was a man who had spent 32 years believing that order held the world together. And now, one young guard was threatening to fracture that order. Whitmore, Grant said again, quieter this time. Last chance. Step aside. Daniel could hear his own heartbeat. Not fast. Not panicked. Just heavy. Like every beat carried the weight of a decision that would echo for years. Sir, Daniel said carefully, with respect. I cannot. Behind Grant, the two senior guards shifted slightly. Not aggressive. Not supportive. Just witnesses to a moment none of them wanted to be part of. Grant exhaled slowly through his nose. You're a good soldier, Daniel. Clean record. Strong evaluations. I recommended you for advancement last year. Daniel didn't move. And you're about to throw it away, Grant added. Daniel's jaw tightened. Inside his mind, memories flashed like photographs. Rebecca laughing in their small kitchen. Emma showing him her school drawing of Daddy the Hero. Sophie running into his arms every evening. Then another memory. Princess Catherine's voice on the phone that morning. Not royal. Not distant. Human. Please. I'm trusting you. Daniel spoke again. Sir. I made an oath. Grant's eyes hardened. So did I, he said. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Grant straightened. Lance Corporal Daniel Whitmore, you are relieved of duty pending disciplinary review. The words landed like cold rain. Daniel nodded once. Understood, sir. He slowly removed his rifle strap from his shoulder and handed the weapon to the nearest guard. His hands were steady now. Strangely steady. Like the decision had already been made long before this moment. Just as the guard stepped forward, a voice echoed from the far end of the corridor. Clear. Come. Unmistakably authoritative. That will not be necessary, Major. Every head turned. Princess Catherine walked toward them, her steps confident but unhurried. She wore a simple navy dress and low heels, but she carried the presence of someone who understood exactly where she stood, and why. The air itself seemed to shift around her. Grant stepped back immediately. Your Royal Highness. Daniel straightened instinctively. Catherine stopped beside them, her eyes moving first to Daniel, just for a second. But in that second he saw relief. Then she turned to Grant. I understand there is confusion regarding my orders. Grant cleared his throat. Ma'am, the Queen Consort requested entry to your office. Lance Corporal Whitmore refused. When I issued a direct order, he refused again. Catherine nodded slowly. And did anyone confirm my instructions before attempting to override them? Grant hesitated. No, ma'am. Catherine clasped her hands calmly. Then allow me to clarify. Lance Corporal Whitmore acted exactly as instructed. The tension snapped like a rope cut under pressure. Grant looked at Daniel again, differently now. Not as a problem. As a soldier who had held the line. Catherine turned fully toward Daniel. Did you allow anyone to enter? No, ma'am. Even under pressure? No, ma'am. She nodded once. Good. Just one word. But Daniel felt his chest loosen for the first time in an hour. Catherine turned back to Grant. These documents are under my direct protection until further notice. That includes protection from internal requests. Grant gave a small bow of his head. Understood, ma'am.
The veil
Footsteps
between
approached
worlds is
again
thinning.
from behind,
We must
hurried
act
this time.
now, before
Queen
it is
Consort
too
Helena
late.
returned, her expression sharp with controlled frustration. Catherine, she said coolly, I believe we need to discuss the definition of authority. Catherine faced her calmly. I agree. Helena gestured toward the office. These are royal matters. Catherine didn't raise her voice. They are personal matters. Helena's eyes narrowed. Nothing belonging to this institution is purely personal. Catherine held her gaze. Some things are. Especially when they involve health, family, and private correspondence. The corridor fell silent again. Helena studied her for a long moment. Then she turned slightly, glancing once at Daniel, as if memorizing his face. Very well, she said finally. For now. She walked away without another word. Her advisors followed quickly. When they were gone, Grant let out a slow breath. I'll handle the report, ma'am, he said quietly. Thank you, Major, Catherine replied. Then she turned back to Daniel. For a moment, the royal formality faded. Walk with me, she said. They moved down a side corridor away from the others. Catherine spoke softly. You knew what this could cost you. Yes, ma'am. Why did you still refuse? Daniel thought for a moment. Because you sounded like you needed someone to follow the order without question. Catherine looked ahead, blinking once. That's rare, she said quietly. They reached a window overlooking the courtyard. Lance Corporal Whitmore, she said formally again, you are reinstated to your post immediately. And, thank you. Daniel nodded. Always, ma'am. As she walked away, Daniel felt something settle inside him. Not relief. Not pride. Something deeper. The quiet knowledge that sometimes the hardest moment in a person's life is just standing still. When everyone else wants you to move. The secret behind the documents. The late afternoon sun stretched long golden lines across the palace windows, turning the marble floors into mirrors of fading light. Windsor Castle, so often filled with movement and ceremony, felt unusually quiet. Daniel Whitmore stood once again outside Office 3B. Back on duty. Back in position. But nothing inside him felt the same. Because now he knew something most soldiers never experience. The weight of being trusted when it truly mattered. Footsteps approached softly from behind him. Not urgent. Not official. Just human. Lance Corporal. Daniel turned immediately. Princess Catherine stood there alone. No advisors. No staff. Just her. Walk with me, she said quietly. They moved down a private corridor lined with historic portraits. Generations of history watching silently as two people walked side by side. Not as royal and soldier, but as two people connected by one moment of choice. After a few steps she spoke. I owe you an explanation. Daniel said nothing. Just listened. The documents inside that office, she paused briefly, are medical. Daniel kept his expression neutral, but inside something shifted. They're not state documents. Not political. Not financial. Just personal health records. Private correspondence with specialists. Letters to my family. Her voice stayed calm. But softer now. I'm undergoing treatment, she continued. Nothing immediate. Nothing life-threatening. But something I needed time to face privately before it became public discussion. Daniel nodded once. Not pity. Not shock. Just understanding. I wasn't ready for it to be analyzed, debated, speculated on, she said. And I knew once those documents were copied or shared, that privacy would disappear forever. They stopped near a tall window overlooking the gardens.
Precision is paramount.
Outside,
Yes,
winter
sir.
roses moved gently in the wind. I needed control over one thing, Catherine said. Just one. She turned slightly toward him. And today you gave me that. Daniel swallowed lightly. I was just following orders, ma'am. She smiled faintly. No, she said. You were protecting something you didn't even understand. That's something else entirely. Silence sat comfortably between them for a moment. Then she said something unexpected. Do you have children, Lance Corporal? Yes, ma'am. 2 daughters. What are their names? Emma and Sophie. Catherine nodded slowly. If one day they are in a position where the world expects perfection from them, I hope someone like you stands nearby. Daniel felt warmth rise in his chest. Not pride. Responsibility. They walked a little further before Catherine spoke again. This institution runs on protocol, she said. But people run on trust. She paused. And trust is fragile. They reached a small private sitting room. She stopped at the doorway. One more thing, she said. Daniel stood straight. I've authorized that no disciplinary record be attached to today's incident. Daniel blinked once. Thank you, ma'am. And Major Grant has submitted a commendation for professional integrity.
Just tell us the truth.
That surprised him more than anything. Catherine nodded toward the corridor behind them. You reminded people today that duty isn't about power. It's about protection. She hesitated slightly. Sometimes, even protecting us from ourselves. Daniel lowered his head respectfully. I'll continue to serve to the best of my ability, ma'am. I know, she said softly. She turned and entered the room, leaving Daniel alone in the corridor. But he didn't feel alone. He felt steadier. Like something invisible but important had shifted inside him. Later that night, Daniel sat at his kitchen table at home, still in partial uniform, while Rebecca placed 2 cups of tea down. You're quiet, she said gently. Long day, he replied. She sat across from him. Good or bad? Daniel thought for a moment. Important. Rebecca studied his face carefully. You did the right thing, didn't you? Daniel nodded. Yes. She reached across the table and squeezed his hand. Then nothing else matters. Upstairs, Emma and Sophie slept peacefully, unaware that their father had stood at the center of something much bigger than any of them. And Daniel realized something simple and powerful.
Enemy positions
Courage
are
doesn't
advancing
always
here.
look like
We
action.
must reinforce the
Sometimes,
flanks. Agreed.
looks like
Deploy
standing
reserves
still.
immediately.
When everything around you demands you move. The cost of integrity. 3 days after the corridor incident, Windsor Castle felt different. Not louder. Not quieter. Just watchful. Daniel noticed it immediately. Conversations stopped when he walked into guard briefing rooms. Some soldiers nodded respectfully. Others avoided eye contact entirely. Not hostility, but tension. Because everyone knew. Not officially. But inside palace walls, nothing stayed secret for long. The internal review. Daniel sat in a small administrative office across from Major Grant Holden and 2 senior review officers. A recorder blinked red on the table. Lance Corporal Whitmore, one officer said, this is a formal review of events regarding Office 3B. Daniel nodded. Yes, sir. Did you knowingly refuse a direct order from Major Holden? Yes, sir. Why? Daniel answered without hesitation. Because my original orders were issued directly by the Princess of Wales and had not been revoked. The officer exchanged a look with the other reviewer. Were you aware of the career risk involved? Yes, sir. Why accept that risk? Daniel paused, then spoke honestly. Because sometimes duty requires personal cost. The room went quiet. Major Grant looked down at the table briefly. Outside the palace walls. Meanwhile, rumors had begun moving beyond staff circles. Not details. Just whispers. Security disagreement. Internal protocol conflict. Unusual access request blocked. News outlets speculated, but no facts surfaced. Inside the palace, communications teams worked quietly to keep attention away from anything personal. Catherine continued her public schedule carefully. Calmly. Gracefully. But internally she knew something had changed. Someone had protected her when it mattered. And she would not forget that. The Queen Consort's position. Queen Consort Helena did not confront Daniel again. But her presence felt sharper during official appearances. Not hostile. Measured. Watching. She was a woman who understood influence. And she understood that loyalty inside an institution could shift power quietly. But she also understood something else. Daniel had not acted politically. He had acted personally. And that made him complicated. Major Grant's private conversation. 2 evenings after the review, Major Grant
Like
called
this,
Daniel
Daddy?
into his
Almost.
office.
Try using this
Sit
color.
down, Grant
Okay.
said.
Good job.
Daniel
Now fill
sat.
it in.
Let's
Beautiful.
Grant removed his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. You put me in a difficult position, Whitmore? Yes, sir. Grant looked up. But you also reminded me why I joined. Daniel didn't respond. Grant leaned back. In 30 years I've seen men follow orders blindly, and I've seen men ignore orders for ego. He paused. You did it for duty. Daniel spoke carefully. I just followed the chain of command as it was given to me, sir. Grant gave a small nod. Officially, the review is closed. Daniel blinked. No disciplinary action. A slow breath left Daniel's chest. And, Grant added, sliding a paper across the desk. I submitted this. Daniel looked down. Commendation for integrity under pressure. Daniel swallowed. Thank you, sir. Grant shook his head slightly. Don't thank me. You earned it. At home, the real cost. That night, Daniel sat with Rebecca on their couch after the girls had gone to bed. Are we okay? Rebecca asked quietly. Daniel nodded. Yes. She studied him. But it was close. Yes. She leaned against him. I was scared. Daniel wrapped an arm around her. So was I. They sat in silence for a while. Then Rebecca said something simple. I don't want a hero. I want my husband home safe. Daniel kissed her forehead. I plan to be both. Catherine's decision. A week later, Catherine requested a private staff briefing. Not public. Not ceremonial. Just internal. She spoke calmly. Institutions are only as strong as the people who protect them. Not the ones who lead them. Not the ones who speak for them. She paused. But the ones who stand quietly, when standing is hardest. Several staff members understood exactly who she meant. The weight of reputation. Within palace circles, Daniel's name quietly changed meaning. Not famous. Not controversial. Just respected. New recruits were told quietly. Protocol matters. But integrity matters more. Daniel never spoke about the incident publicly. Never bragged. Never explained. Because for him it was never about recognition. It was about a promise. And promises mattered. The quiet shift. Weeks passed. Routine returned. But small things changed. Senior officers listened slightly longer before giving final orders. Staff verified instructions more carefully.
Radiant today.
And Daniel realized something powerful. Integrity doesn't just protect people. It reshapes systems. Slowly. Quietly. But permanently. The legacy of one decision. 6 months later, spring sunlight filled the palace gardens with color again. Winter had passed. And with it, the quiet tension that once lived inside the walls of Windsor Castle. Daniel Whitmore adjusted his uniform collar as he stood in formation with other guards in the central courtyard. The air smelled faintly of fresh-cut grass and blooming roses. Today was supposed to be routine. But Daniel had learned something over the past months. Routine days often carried the biggest moments. A changed atmosphere. Since the incident, small but meaningful changes had spread through the palace. Orders were clearer. Communication was more precise. And something harder to measure had grown stronger. Mutual respect. Daniel wasn't treated like a celebrity. He wasn't treated like a rebel. He was treated like something rarer. Trusted. The invitation. 1 week earlier, Daniel had received an official envelope. Inside was a formal invitation to attend a small internal recognition ceremony. He hadn't expected it. Hadn't asked for it. But Rebecca had smiled when she read it.
A pleasure,
You should go, she told him.
Mine,
You showed them who you
Walk
are.
with me.
Let
Yes,
them
sir.
acknowledge it. The ceremony. The courtyard ceremony was modest. No press. No public broadcast. Just senior staff, guards, and key royal representatives. Major Grant stood at the podium. Service is often invisible, he said. Today we recognize a moment when service became visible, not because it sought attention but because it refused to break. Daniel felt every eye shift toward him. Lance Corporal Daniel Whitmore demonstrated integrity under pressure, loyalty under scrutiny, and professionalism under risk. Grant paused. These are not just military values. These are institutional values. Daniel stepped forward when called. The medal placed in his hand felt heavier than metal should. Not because of status. Because of meaning. Catherine's words. After the ceremony, Catherine approached him privately in a side garden. The spring air moved gently through the trees. You didn't do it for recognition, she said. No, ma'am. I know. She paused, looking out toward the palace grounds. I'm ready now, she said quietly. Daniel understood what she meant. The medical situation. The documents. The privacy she had needed. I'm stronger because I had time, she said. Then she looked at him. You gave me that time. Daniel answered softly. I just did my job, ma'am. Catherine smiled. No, she said. You reminded people what the job is supposed to be. The public moment. 2 months later, Catherine publicly shared her health journey in a controlled, dignified announcement. The public response was overwhelmingly supportive. Because strength paired with honesty inspires people. Inside palace walls, very few people knew how close that privacy had come to disappearing months earlier. And Daniel preferred it that way. At home, the real legacy. That evening, Daniel sat on the living room floor helping Emma with homework while Sophie colored beside them. "Daddy," Emma asked suddenly, "what does integrity mean?" Daniel thought for a moment. "It means doing the right thing, even when it's hard." Emma nodded seriously. "I want to be like that." Daniel smiled. "You already are." Rebecca watched from the kitchen doorway, pride quiet but strong in her eyes. Major Grant's final conversation. One afternoon during shift change, Major Grant stopped beside Daniel. "You know," Grant said, "most soldiers never realize when their moment comes." Daniel nodded. Grant continued. "Yours came in a hallway, with no audience, and no guarantee anyone would ever know." He paused. "That's the kind that matters most." The final reflection. Months later, Daniel stood again outside Office 3B during routine duty rotation. Same hallway. Same marble floor. Same door. But he wasn't the same man. Not more important. Not more powerful. Just more certain. Because he had learned something simple and permanent. History isn't always shaped in public. Sometimes. It's shaped in quiet corridors. By people nobody expects. Making choices nobody applauds. Until much later. Catherine's final private words. Before leaving for an international visit, Catherine passed Daniel in the corridor. She stopped briefly. "Titles create authority," she said softly. "But character creates trust." Then she walked on. And Daniel realized something he would carry forever. The greatest victories don't change who you are. They confirm who you were all along.